still have a lot of work that needs to be done.
Hey everybody, it's B Diz the Rockstar, part of SuperObvious. In this video, we're doing the review and recap for Saw X. Let's go.
I'll be right back.
Hello, Detective Banks.
Come and get it!
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
I'm not going over the whole movie, but a lot of it. So as you know, from the trailer and any kind of news you've heard, Saw X takes place between the first and second movies in the franchise. John is told that he only has a few months to live because of his brain cancer. John sees a janitor stealing the valuables of a patient while they are asleep. We see this person in a jigsaw trap, which is him in a chair with these tubes connected to his eyes that are connected to this super strong vacuum machine. He has to choose to break each of his fingers by clicking the switch, and each of his eyeballs get sucked out of his head. It's super intense and gross as fuck. But this was all a vision John had, and after confronting the janitor and the janitor deciding to put the patient's valuables back, so the whole jigsaw trap was like a thought John had but didn't actually do, which was the first time we've seen something like that. John is a part of these group therapy meetings where everyone talks about their different illnesses and how they don't have long to live because of the severity of their conditions. One of the members of the group is a guy named Henry. He runs into John and looks noticeably healthier and happy. Henry tells John about the special treatment that he got that cured him. John has this subtle but also big expression of hope that maybe he can be cured and live a life a lot longer than he was diagnosed and told he would live. Henry gives John the web address to do research. The Connect is called the Peterson Project. He sends an email and gets a phone call from Dr. Cecilia Peterson, who talks a bunch of shit expressing a very promising treatment that will cure John and change his life so he can actually live one. He goes to Mexico, where this establishment is, because the kind of practice the Peterson Project does to quote-unquote cure people isn't legal in the US, which is already a red flag. We know John Kramer is a very intelligent man, but kind of lets himself go through the motions of getting this promising surgery and cure started because his clock is ticking and he doesn't have any other options. When he arrives in Mexico, he is abducted while being driven by a taxi and dropped off at the area of where his surgery will happen. Even though everyone is welcoming, that's sketch and another red flag. He meets Gabriella, who vouches that this facility saved her life. John meets Cecilia and all the other staff that will take a part in John's surgery. During the brain surgery, John is told that he will be in and out of consciousness. During this time, the person doing the surgery tells the nurse to turn the monitor so John can't see how the progress is going with his surgery, which is super sketch and another red flag. John wakes up and Cecilia talks to him how his surgery went great and he will be taking these medical doses combined with his surgery and he will be fine. He later returns to show his appreciation, but the house he arrived at is empty and the surgery center is abandoned, and he finds a video that shows the footage of his brain surgery, which wasn't even his. John Kramer is an old man with brain cancer, and he is a victim of a bunch of con artists that pretended to cure him, didn't, took a lot of his money, and are heartless vultures that took advantage of his vulnerability and sold him this dream that he had hope and could recover from his medical illness. Skipping forward, John captures every person that had something to do with this con fake surgery that supposedly quote-unquote cured him. Obviously, John is sick and couldn't do this on his own, so we have the reveal of Amanda, who is debatably John's biggest apprentice and follower, and it's a big deal. Again, she was the first victim of John's and survived the reverse bear trap from the first Saw movie. Now, we're going to talk about the traps. I'm not even going to call these people victims. I know there is a debate rabbit hole that hardcore Saw fans can go back and forth on until the end of time if John is a quote-unquote bad guy or not in the Saw franchise. But in Saw X, we love John, we care about him, we want him to get better like he was promised, and these people fucked him. This is actually the first Saw movie where John is the main character with the most screen time for sure, so it's special. And let me know in the comments, I do feel bad for the messed up shit John is about to do to all these people for payback, karma, or whatever specific word you want to use. The first trap is Diego. He wakes up with knives duct taped to his hands and he has to cut these huge chunks out of his arm to get these bombs out before they explode. He does accomplish this before the timer runs out and lives. Next is Valentina. She has to use one of those wire ropes to saw cut her whole leg off from upper thigh level and drain her blood into a container to a certain amount in a certain amount of time. She cuts her whole leg off but doesn't meet the goal of blood amount, so this square frame moves this super sharp wire across her neck, cutting her whole head off, killing her. The others remaining, Cecilia, Gabriella, and Mateo, try to use the legit guts of Valentina to use the phone that is in the pig outfit that Amanda wore earlier, but it doesn't work out because Amanda surprises Cecilia tasing her. The next trap is for Mateo. He has to use this small drill to cut a chunk of his skull out and get a piece of his brain and drop it in a container. He doesn't pass this trap in time, and this helmet that's around his head closes, which has the burning coils like when you turn your oven on. It closes his head, burning him until he dies. Next is Gabriella. She has chains on her left wrist and right ankle and is suspended in the air and has to use a hammer to smash her wrist and ankle to slip out of the chains and drop to the floor. And this is while she is being exposed to high levels of radiation that's basically melting her skin and killing her. She actually passes her test and survives the trap, but doesn't because Cecilia later stomps on her head and neck, killing her. Okay, so before Amanda shocked Cecilia, she made a phone call, and that was to Parker, which was someone that the Peterson Project quote-unquote cured of throat cancer. He was captured and seemed like he understood the principle of why John and Amanda was doing this violent shit to all these con artists. So before the last person, Cecilia, was going to be put in her trap, the twist is that Parker and Cecilia are a couple. This gets the upper hand on John and Amanda. John is actually forced into his own trap that was meant for Cecilia. Cecilia sees that the kid Carlos that likes to play soccer is outside and takes him hostage. She makes John and Carlos be in this final trap where they lie on this platform that changes angles based on each other pulling a lever, and they are getting waterboarded, which is a form of torture, but it's with blood. If you're invested in the franchise and with John, this was the most emotional scene I've ever seen in the whole Saw franchise. You have this old man and a kid drowning in blood, and they are trying to take the torture as much as they can and bounce it back and forth between each of them so they can try to survive. Oh, Cecilia has been gloating and showing how heartless she is the whole time as soon as she wasn't chained up anymore. Like, she could be the worst bad guy in the Saw franchise. When Parker and Cecilia go to the second floor to get all the money they conned from people, we have another twist, and that's John setting up the room for them to be locked in, and it's getting filled with toxic gas. There is a whole opening where they can stick their head out to breathe and not have exposure, but it's only for one person. Cecilia stabs and kills Parker to save herself. John, Amanda, and Carlos leave after watching Cecilia, and the movie ends. My only critique, which is kind of a big one, is that it seems like they all just left, and even though Cecilia is trapped in this room with all the poison gas, she probably will live. Or the fact that she is the mastermind behind the faking of John being cured, but we don't see her actually killed from a trap on screen. I definitely have mixed feelings about that. It's like we didn't get to see that main bad guy death that we definitely should have gotten to wrap the movie up. But yeah, that's the video. Let me know in the comments how you feel about Saw X. I honestly did really like this movie. As me making this video, on the day the movie was released, it has a IMDb rating of 7.4, which is pretty freaking good. It was great seeing John as a main character. It had the traps like expected, but also felt a lot more emotional with the story, and also cool planning the movie in a timeline between the first two movies. If this movie does good enough, maybe there will be another mid-cool movie, maybe like something between Saw 2 and 3, where John is the main focus, to where it's kind of like a part 2 of Saw X. Like and share the video, subscribe, tell other Saw fans to support the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Totally for sure.